Welcome to the Project Violet podcast. My name is Daniel.
And I'm Carrie.
Carrie, how's it going? It's been a while since we've done one of these.
It has. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I forgot how my whole setup is, so we just spent a little time off camera getting ready. So here we are. We are
I
ready.
mean, you came back to it though. You're good.
We're back. Yeah.
We're back.
And today we are talking about the no's of leadership,
Yes.
or the deadly don'ts, the
I
dangerous
definitely don't.
don'ts.
Maybe. Yeah. I think it's worth saying, I think, to our listeners, Daniel, that we certainly prefer to talk about leadership in the what you should do, the things to do to optimize,
Mhm.
your experience as a leader, the experience of other people. But this, I thought, I personally listen to a lot of podcasts, and I have one in particular that's like a pop, culture type of podcast that I enjoy that's really lighthearted. And they often do the nose of X, they'll just pick a topic. And I just think it's really funny. So I thought we would just kick off our chats about leadership in that way. So, take it or leave it. But I don't know. I thought it was fun.
I like it. Yeah, I might revert back to the shoulds and
That's
just
totally
reframe
fine.
them in the negative. But uh no, yeah, I'm excited. It was something that I was definitely thinking about yesterday. So I got some thoughts, but I want to hear yours. And
Yeah.
yeah, excited to see what you got to say.
The very first thing that came to mind for me when I thought about this topic was the idea or the notion that leaders should not hold other people to a standard that they themselves cannot meet.
I like that.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about a lot, especially when I became a manager. Um, and what I hated was when I was being managed by someone who I knew was holding me to a standard that they couldn't do, or
Mm-hmm.
they were asking me to do things that they've never done in their careers. And I could tell
Mm-hmm.
because when I would ask them questions to clarify what they were asking me to do, they clearly had no idea what they were asking for.
That's right.
And that was very frustrating. So yeah, I totally believe that.
Yeah, I think it's wild. I mean, it can run a gamut. And I'd love to talk more about how you felt working for that person because it was not enjoyable for you. And I think this holding people to this other the standard that you yourself can't meet, it really runs a gamut of um, something benign time off policy or what, or flexibility, right, with the workday, which is, seemingly like, whatever, to some of this like much bigger, impactful stuff about do this thing on this project or do this thing to be able to get to X. And this person's never done that and they can't offer you any guidance. There's this weird, difference in expectation that just doesn't feel good. Right.
Yeah, and I'm as you're talking through that, I'm reminded of Steve Jobs, which I guess is not the best uh person to look for well, it's just a different type of leadership. But I know in one of the interviews he talked about how he figured out how to get the best managers in his company, and it was the best engineers that didn't want to be managers, but
Right.
they felt like it was a necessary job and someone had to do it, so they just stepped into the role. And
It sounds
those,
like my husband. I think you're talking about my husband.
yeah, and those became the best managers. Was it Steve
Yeah.
Jobs? Anyway, yeah, it was. Anyway, or it might have been at Google, but essentially it's just the people that know how to do the job really, really well, and know that hey, the team is growing to an extent where there needs to be some kind of management layer, and
Hmm.
there's no one else that can do it, or that I think can do it, so I might as well step into that role. And they reluctantly step into a leadership role because they know it's necessary for the team to function and to
Hmm.
succeed. But those are the best ones because A, they know how to do the job, and
Hmm.
B, they're
And
kind
have
of
done it,
reluctant.
and they
Yeah,
know how to do it, and have done it, right?
yeah. And they
Yeah.
see the gap in leadership and they're stepping into it to fill that gap because they feel like they're the best person to do the job. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a great way to progress in your career.
It makes me think, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole truly, but I just want to say, because the first thing I thought when you said that is that, Daniel Pink's work about how everybody wants three things out of their job or their career, and that's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I think you're talking about
Mhm.
that, right? In that scenario, like this idea that people, there's purpose in the fact that somebody has to lead, and
Mhm.
I'm going to step into it. They've gotten to a place where they've mastered the role they're in, it feels like, right? So that they can then guide others. And then the autonomy, I assume, maybe, that's maybe a stretch, but this idea that they can then, create
Yeah.
or be in the situation where they have, can operate in a more autonomous way.
Yeah. I do want to also note that when you get into larger leadership roles, you're obviously going to be stepping into something where you've never done it before, or
Oh, sure.
you'd be taking on teams that you don't necessarily have, or you that didn't necessarily come up through the ranks in that division, but
Hmm.
now you own that division as, kind of a higher executive leader. So there definitely is, times where you don't know what the job is or how to do it step by step, but I still think your mantra holds true of you can't hold someone to a standard that you wouldn't be willing to do. And that might be
Right.
the overarching leadership principle of,
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's talk about that for a second because I'm really glad that you said that because, of course, there are, and I wasn't even thinking about this, but you're right. Like there are roles, especially the higher, you go in an organization, you're going to be managing and leading people who do things that you have no idea,
yeah,
about what they do. And I think there's a way to manage that, right? The relationship with those people and to say that, with transparency, I'm excited to learn from you. And I want to know what it is that you do and how I can help remove obstacles and, give you the resources that you need and all those things. You can still be a really effective leader. And to your point, you just don't, ask of people things that you yourself aren't willing to do.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like
Yeah.
that. Did you have
Yeah.
another one?
I do, but mine's the other one is kind of like a silly, like maybe we end on it. Not silly, but
Okay.
just like a little, I don't know. It won't be as serious. So I would prefer to hear your first one
Well,
and talk
I'm
about
all
that
about
and
being
then
serious, so that we can keep with that, and then we can end with your high note.
okay.
So the way that I was thinking about it, and again, I kept going back to like what you should do as a leader, and then so I'm going to try to reframe it in the
Yeah.
negative. But essentially, I've narrowed it down to three C's. So I tried to get some, is it
Mm-hmm.
what do they call that,
This
alliteration?
tracks for you. I like it. I'm
Yeah.
following. Okay.
So it's things that you can't ignore as a leader, and the three things is culture, communication, and cadence. Those are the
Okay.
three things that I'm going to focus on. So number one, culture. I think that is one of the most important things as a leader that you need to not only define and understand, but you have to nurture. You have to prune it like it's a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And a quote that I really liked is the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate.
Oh, that's for sure
That hits
true.
home, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that just speaks to if you neglect your culture, it'll start shaping itself, and it usually shapes itself in the wrong direction. So you
I would
really
say,
need to
I mean, it
almost
always
always,
does.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Right. Right.
exactly. So I think the first thing that you need to do, and I guess the thing you shouldn't ignore to
Okay.
keep it on the
Yes.
don'ts, the deadly don'ts is if you
Don't
ignore
ignore
your
culture. The
don't
no
ignore your
ignoring.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the opposite of that? That is
Yeah.
you have to understand what your culture is, define it really well, make sure that everyone kind of gets the culture in the company, and then you have to
Yeah.
start weeding out the people that are culture killers. And it really, and this could be, the main example that you always hear is the toxic person, right? So someone
Mhm.
who comes in who's a super high performer and is just toxic to everyone on the team. And the CEO usually keeps them around because
Yes.
they're a great salesperson or they're a great engineer that pumps out amazing code, but they're toxic to the people around the team. And what happens is you end up just having that single person in your company because everyone else leaves.
That's right.
And and
Nobody
that's
wants to
the
put up with it.
yeah. But I also want to bring up the kind of the flip side of that. Some cultures, especially, in Asia, talking to a lot of my cousins, the culture of the company is what they do the 996, which is they work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And that's the
Oh,
culture of the company.
whoa.
Yeah, which doesn't jive with us.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So if we were a part of those cultures, we would be the people that would need to be weeded out because
We would.
I need to come home to my family and spend time and eat dinner with them. And I can't do the 996. So
Oh.
it works in both directions, right? So it could be someone who has what we would consider a toxic, or it could be a company that we would consider maybe toxic for us. And we would
Mm-hmm.
be the people that need to be weeded out of the company. But it's also the other way around with the salesperson example. If you have someone who doesn't fit your
Mm-hmm.
culture and is actually really toxic, has a toxic personality, is someone you need to weed out. But
Well,
anyway,
and I think it's
culture.
worth saying too, and I like the flip side of that. And I think, we don't all fit everywhere. And even if we're not toxic, I think it's worth saying like someone who's not a cultural fit doesn't necessarily have to be toxic to not be a fit. Like there's things that they
Right.
they just aren't, willing to
They just don't fit the culture.
right. I mean, I guess like, yeah, I'm trying to like be more specific, but you can't in this, because it's just
Yeah,
sometimes you,
could be
as a
anything.
leader, you just know. And I think it's worth, it's certainly when you're the leader and you're managing someone who is not fitting, right? There's just something off. It is up to the manager to have those conversations and say, like, this is my expectation. Like you said, this is the culture that we're striving for
Yeah,
as a team,
yeah.
right? And this is where I see your behavior not matching that. Like, what do you think? Like, can you adjust or, somehow fix it or not? And I think, it doesn't mean somebody's bad or toxic necessarily. Of course, toxic people exist and we need to get them out of there. But
Hmm.
sometimes you're just not a fit. Like, what if it's somebody who's just like perpetually late and the culture of that team is that we are on time and we don't hold everybody else up,
Hmm.
while we're grabbing a coffee because we overslept or something. I just, that person isn't necessarily toxic, right? They're
Yep,
just
that's
late.
exactly it. That's a great way. Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to end that point is
Yeah.
exactly. It's just you got to understand, define your culture and weed
Yeah.
out the people that don't fit that culture. And it could
Yeah.
be a good person, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
It's just they just don't fit that culture. And they should go somewhere where they do fit in the culture so
I
that they can
agree.
be
And
their
everybody will
their
be
best
happier.
self, yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's
thrive.
right.
All right, number two, communication. So this one is talking about ignoring not only how you communicate. I think as a leader, you should constantly work on how you communicate your vision, your strategy, and make sure that it is being filtered down to the front lines and in the way that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's as a leader, you can't ignore how the flow of information moves side to side from your different teams between
Okay.
teams. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
create silos. You don't want people to, hold information. And so you have to be mindful of how information flows, left to right and also up and down.
Mm-hmm.
I've when I first started my career, I was fortunate enough to be part of some leadership development programs. So I was spending time with executives in kind of the highest levels of the organization. And then after that, we got deployed out to the front lines, and I could see how their strategy just got diluted down to
Sure.
status reports at the front lines. And I also got to observe how, they just wanted to figure out a metric at the highest level to be able to make good decisions, and how that turned into a 20-page deck in the front lines to
Oof.
filter that information back up. And I also saw on the way up how that information got distorted and kind of manipulated so that, in a way, I felt like the leaders weren't getting the best information because I could see how information was just, there's politics, there's people that always want their teams to be viewed in a certain light, and they
Sure.
would you kind of tweak information within those slide decks. And as it got up, I knew, it's not exactly what they were looking for. So that was really important, or a good lesson for me to learn of how important the flow
I
of
feel like we could
information
even,
is.
yeah. And I feel like we could even talk on another episode about that and how to, right?
Yeah.
Like that just feels like, yeah, a
It
big one. And I'll tell you, people, if you don't get in front of it as a leader, the story, whatever the messaging is,
mhm.
people will tell their own story. Like you're saying, like
Exactly. Yeah.
don't think for a second they won't, right?
Yeah. So you have to constantly think about and observe and figure out how information is flowing in your organization. Again, from team to team, from up to, from the front lines up to you in the C-suite or the
Mm-hmm.
executive level, all the way down. And I have a quote here. Nothing in business is more dangerous than the communication gap between the top of the organization and the people actually doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks to it. Um, One of the other companies I worked for was Ross Perot's. Do you remember Ross Perot?
I do. I
Yeah, with the
remember that
charts.
you, when I
Yeah.
first met you, I remember I learned that you worked for him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he is an interesting character, and what I loved about him was he in his first company, I think, he would, he's the CEO, and he would constantly, or no, when his company was acquired by, I don't know, another manufacturing company. I forgot what it was, but he got acquired by another company, but he was still running it. And he would constantly leave the C-suite office and go down to kind of the manufacturing lines and talk to all the workers all the time. And that drove the leadership nuts because he would come
Really?
back with insights and have recommendations for changes. And the leadership, they had a very classic hierarchy that they just
Sure.
thought that wasn't cool to do. But yeah, Ross Perot would always do that. When I worked for him, he would always eat lunch in the cafeteria, so that he was always be someone that was accessible and you could
Yeah.
talk to, and he liked talking to you, no matter what level you were at. So I
Yeah.
think that's just one example of how you can kind of cut off the information distortion is as a leader, you can speak to the frontline staff and have an open
That's
communication
right.
that line.
That's exactly where my brain went. If we were going to talk about, how to make sure that that communication line is open and um, productive, right, or clear, I think it is talk to people. Like it is as simple. It is
Yeah.
simple, almost to the fact where even Ross Perot at the time, it sounds like some people weren't thrilled about his accessibility or his
Mhm.
involvement in those layers of the organization, but he could have. And maybe he did this. I'm not suggesting he didn't, but the people who were frustrated by his, poking around, if you will, um, he could have or did talk to them about the fact that like this is why I'm doing this. This isn't to like catch you in something or to it's not
No, yeah,
punitive. It's this is really a strategy long term for this organization, to be able to continue to thrive.
absolutely.
I think we sometimes don't think that the simplest thing is the right thing, and the simplest thing is to have a conversation with somebody.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
that sets the tone too for leaders.
yeah,
If you know your CEO can go whenever he wants down to the front line and just learn what they're doing, then you are disincentivized to change information on the way up because someone can go down and just validate that or verify that at any point in time.
yeah.
So you have to be truthful.
That's right. That's right. You know what I think about? I read a story earlier this week that really stuck with me. And I think it applies here to a degree because I think so many people reach a level in an organization and you started off your story saying he would leave the C-suite offices like that.
Mm.
It was like a physical, like
Oh yeah, there's a tower.
observable behavior, right? Where he
Yeah.
like, left this area, to go and be with the people doing the work. And I think, and this is weird that I'm mentioning Daniel Pink twice in one conversation, but I do really like him and what he has to say. And I think he was sharing, and I can find it too, if we want to link to it, but he was sharing a story of someone else's story. I don't think it was his. And it was called the coffee cup or like the
I've heard this one. Yeah.
did you see this with it's the like the
The
paper
benefits are
coffee
like,
cup?
yeah, it's like the benefits accrue to the position, not the person or something
That's
like that.
right. And how
Yeah.
like the person had been a speaker at one point and like flew first class, people carried his baggage from the airport and then,
Hmm.
this and this and this. And they gave him, they poured him coffee in a ceramic mug. And then the next time he attended the same conference, he was not a speaker or not whatever, wasn't at the status that
Hmm.
that he was at the first time. And they were like, coffee's over there, no one,
Yeah.
like, and it was just, I had never heard it really articulated in that way of like, hey, like, it's real easy as a human being to get comfortable with those perks of that title, whatever the
Yeah.
title is, right?
Yeah.
Like
And,
we all can be susceptible to that,
mhm.
and to like continue to remind yourself that this is not about my value, right? Like
Right.
I'm not more valuable to the organization because of my title. I have a different job to do.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's a really good lesson to learn. And I think a lot of people mentally, when they don't understand that, it can be very difficult for them when they lose the title or they move
Yes,
or they
right.
retire or they move into another position that doesn't have the perks that come with the title. Because if they think these perks are for me as a person and it's not perks for the title, then yeah, they assume everywhere they go they're going to get treated that way, and that's not the
Yeah.
case.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that story, I hadn't heard it before. It sounds like you had.
Mhm.
It just really struck me as such a cool way to illustrate like what we're here to do as leaders. And it's certainly not, to exert power over others because you have some title that's probably inflated anyway. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. What?
exactly. Hmm.
Titles are kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll jump to the third one. So
Yeah,
this will
I
be
want to hear it. Yeah, yeah.
the third serious one, and then we can jump to your fun one.
Yeah.
And I'll be quick through that. So the last one's cadence, and this one's kind of how you can't ignore the operating rhythm of your company. So this is like the pace of work,
Okay.
and the thing that I always think about is work always expands to fill the time that it's allotted to complete. So a lot of the times, uh, if you're a leader and you don't set deadlines, you don't understand how work should get done and when, the work won't get done. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's really important for leaders to understand and to set the tone of, hey, this is how we work as a company. This is our operating rhythm. This is the cadence of how we get things completed, and we need to get that done in a timely fashion, or else, work is just going to meander and drift, and it's gonna really impede progress. So I think
Hmm.
you can't ignore the cadence of the work of your company as a leader. And if you ignore it, then work won't get done and things will start to drift and um, yeah, just be undefined and things won't get delivered.
I
So,
haven't really thought about that. I mean, I certainly understand the value of having a deadline. I myself need one and
mhm,
benefit from having one. I think, like you said, everybody does. I wonder if, the first step for that leader is to understand or be able to articulate what the cadence is.
mhm.
Like, have you
Yeah.
thought about it? Do you know, if someone were to ask you, do you know what the pace of your business is? And then it's almost like, isn't there another piece of that on the other side of it too? Of like, so you're saying, don't ignore the cadence or don't not or we're like don't not it's like
Yeah.
use it to your advantage, right? Of course, but then isn't there also an element of um if you don't understand that cadence or you're actively ignoring it, right,
Mhm.
that you could give someone unrealistic deadlines too that really erode
Yeah.
everything
Oh
too.
yeah.
Like if they can't do the thing that you're asking in the time that you're asking for it because of how the business runs,
Yeah.
right?
That's a good point. Yeah, so you to set a cadence and an operating rhythm, you have to understand the components and how long each component takes,
Yeah.
or have a rough estimate of how long it should take.
Yeah.
Um, or else, yeah, you'll set deadlines that people can't meet, and then that'll just set the whole company in some kind of chaos.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. And I mean, people start to, take it like, I mean, if you're not meeting deadlines consistently, imagine how that feels, for
Oh yeah.
somebody, in that way. And you can't meet them because of some external factor. It's not because you're not working hard or,
Yeah, it's
you know,
demoralizing. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And it goes right back to the beginning, the first C, which is culture, right?
Exactly. It's a full circle.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, so I think, just to kind of close the loop on that, I think that's it. So as a leader, you can't ignore your culture. You have to definitely,
Yeah.
and all these things you can't ignore. That means you have to define how it is, you have to understand it, and then as a leader, you have to communicate, um, and make sure everyone understands that. So culture,
Mhm.
communication, and cadence, the things you can't ignore as a leader.
I really like it.
Cool. What's your
I
fun
love
one?
it. Okay. It's not really, I feel like I set it up to fail because it's not really
Oh,
fun.
I want to be having fun right now. Let's go.
I know, and I usually can do that for you, but I just think as a leader, do not schedule meetings for your people on Friday afternoon. Okay, like just don't do it. I think it's such an asshole move. Excuse me. Do we swear? I don't know. I think that people need, and I listen. It's not because I don't want to work. It's not because, whatever. But Fridays, I really find value myself in giving myself time to think, and reflect on the week and like prepare for the next week. And like, there's just something to um, a Friday afternoon meeting. Like we're all, I think, talk about cadence, right? Of work too. Like the work week has its own cadence to some, and I
Mhm.
think it varies, as you mentioned, per person and organization, but there is a familiar cadence to it, right? Where if you ask anyone to look at their calendar, like everything's got to squish in the middle of the week and like, whatever, right? And I just think if you throw a late afternoon meeting on someone's calendar on a Friday, like they're really already thinking about the next week and like, I don't know, right? What do you think about that? Is that ridiculous?
Yeah, no, I think it depends. Yeah. So
You put meetings on people's calendars, don't you, on Friday afternoons?
no, no, but I've definitely attended many Friday afternoon meetings, but usually those are a little more relaxed. People have,
Okay,
understand that, hey, we're kind of unwinding for the week,
sure.
but
Okay, well, if that's the expectation, that's different.
yeah. And a lot of times, so in consulting, traditional consulting, a lot of times is you have to go into the office on Fridays, which is
Sure,
really
because you've
annoying
been out
for
of town all
consultants.
week,
Yeah, been
right?
out of town all
Yeah.
week. It's the time you can connect with everyone. And then usually the beer cart gets rolled around, 2 p.m.
Mhm.
Uh, and then you're kind of having your last few meetings with a beer in hand, or you're saying, hey, let's go to the bar. I mean, there's so much drinking culture in consulting.
I
Yeah,
know.
which is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
And all I can read about now is how alcohol is just killing you slowly every day.
Right. Right.
They should do life expectancy on consultants and see if that
I
tracks.
bet
But
it
anyway,
will. I bet
yeah,
it's,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure
it
a lot of
does. But
agreement.
yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I do think there is, I grew up in that culture, so there is. I'm used to Friday meetings, but it's always in kind of a relaxed setting. But I'm all for it. You should protect your Friday afternoons, and I generally don't like that either. I like to kind of decompress from the week,
Yeah.
and use that time for something that's right up your alley for reflection and to think
Yes.
of, okay, let's kind of close out how did the week go, and let's have some thoughts for what next week looks like. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think yes. Yes. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. Yeah. I think when leaders schedule them like that, like there's almost this, it's like, and I'm talking about something, and you said this, you acknowledge this, but like I'm talking about something very different than your like beer in hand, everybody's in the office,
Yeah, it's
Friday
just
afternoon. Like I think
it's for connection. Yeah.
right, that's it. I think that's a very different thing. If you want to
Yeah.
have something fun for people to do and hop on in lieu of a happy hour, let's say if you're virtual or something, I'm all for that. Listen, I like fun. We know this, but I think when it becomes like this performative of like, I think maybe this is where I've experienced it, Daniel, or observed it from afar, is that the leaders who think like, look how hard I'm working on this Friday afternoon, and
Oh
who
yeah.
knows what time they came in that morning or what they did, in the middle of the day, but they throw these 4 p.m. Friday meetings on to talk about something that's actually pretty important and might need some preparation or really some thought put into this conversation. Like it feels like they're just posturing as like, well, I'm
Yeah.
working at 4 p.m. on Friday, so you better be kind of thing. And maybe I'm just jaded because I've had experiences like that,
When it's
where I've witnessed it.
performative like that, it's annoying. Like when
Yeah,
everyone in the meeting knows we're only here to, to let everyone know that we're still working. That's the
right,
worst.
right,
Yeah.
right. Like and I'm not up for any sort of performative anything, right? When it comes to working, like, and so that kind of thing just really rubs me the wrong way. Like, just be kind to your people, let them wind down, let them, certainly if something's pressing or, to your point, there's a deadline looming or something that we all are aware of
Hmm.
and we have to work toward it. And it's a one-time thing or it's happening occasionally. That's different. But when you're just like piling on your people,
Yeah. And honestly, no one's in their best
no,
at Friday afternoon.
no, you're just
Like
fried
you're
at
not
that
going to get
point.
the best out of your people. It's not going to be the
No,
best output no matter what you're doing.
that's right.
So you might
That's
as well
right.
keep it
Like,
casual and
if you ask yourself, could this be a Monday morning meeting or it's like
or
most of
an
the time
email.
it's a yes or an email, even better. Even that's right. Could this be an email?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
exactly.
Totally.
That's funny. I took your fun your fun idea and made it serious.
Well, that's what you do. That tracks for us.
Yeah. You know what? I do wonder though, kind of yeah, we don't have to go into it, the trajectory of how competitive America is going to be compared to Asia in the future. Because
Oh,
our cultures are so different. Like we're talking about keeping our Friday afternoon sacred, where they're talking about 996 in China.
it's wild.
Yeah, so it's kind of can you yeah, yeah, we can
Well,
talk
I
about that
mean,
a
this
whole
is a whole
another.
thing we could talk about. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many things that our country is doing now to give China the
The
lead.
advantage, yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
they're
right.
pressing forward like they're like this is go time for us. And
Yeah,
we're
because the
we're
people
trying to
don't know any
find
different, right? So it's
yeah,
just,
different
yeah,
cultures.
we've shifted into the next gear and everybody's ready for it.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are over here like, yeah, don't put a meeting on my calendar on Friday.
Don't put me on my calendar Friday afternoon. Yeah.
I mean, it's not my personal goal for the US to be a world like, you know, the world superpower. I don't care, so like
Yeah.
I'd rather be like Norway or I don't know.
Yeah. No, didn't Norway implement a 4-day work week? And they're
I don't know, but that sounds nice.
yeah, I wonder what the outputs of that. Yeah, it's
I,
interesting.
yeah,
I think
I would wonder
maybe we
too.
do some research on that and try to figure out because I mean I think definitely China their work culture is you can't match it over here.
Yeah.
No one's working that hard over here, and I wonder what long term that means for our competitiveness and America's prosperity.
Well, and it depends again, we could talk about this forever, but it depends on how you define prosperity too,
Yeah, that's true.
right? Like what are
Be
your
burnout
values?
central in China
Right. Like
real
people
soon.
are walking around fried and angry and shells of humans.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't know if they are. I haven't been to China, but I
yeah,
think what is the um, collateral damage to that
yeah,
business success, right?
yeah. Like, what does that mean for their economy and the
Yeah, and
people?
that people and their longevity, as a race or like as a
Hmm.
population, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I
But I
don't
mean,
know.
US used to be that. Like there used to be kind of that hard grinding work
Yeah,
culture, the Gordon Gekko lunches for
sure.
wimps, that
There
whole thing.
probably still is, right, in industries
Hmm.
like that are specific to, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I don't
All right,
know.
well, that was a fun ending.
That was really fun. That was weird. I didn't expect we were going to go there, but why not?
That's where my
And
mind
I
goes.
would just like to say too, if there are people listening and they would like to like dig into maybe not the China US thing, maybe. I mean, we could do some research. I'd be happy to, and I know you would too. But even just like your three C's, like, we touched very, lightly on, it was like framed as a don't, but then also a do, keep your eye on these things. If people want to learn, I want us to talk more about how to do that stuff, right, in more detail. I think we could have some fun talking about that
Oh
too.
yeah, I'd be happy to dive into
Yeah.
any of those. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fun
Give
for
them a little
me.
more meat on.
Yeah. No, I love that you bring the fun to it, and then I bring it right back to serious business talk.
Again, this is why we work together, right?
No,
Like this
yeah,
is good.
it's the yin and the yang. All right,
Right.
all right, Carrie.
Which
It
one
was
am I?
fun chatting.
Wait, I don't know.
I don't know. Is
Does
there
it
what?
matter?
I don't know. You're the
Which
peanut
one's the fun
butter to
one?
my jam. I don't know. PB&J. Do you like PB&J?
I love peanut butter and jelly. I mean,
You're the
yum.
jam. You're the jam
Yeah.
because
The jam's the
yeah,
sweet one.
the
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah, you're the sweet fun, and I'm the sticky brown part.
You shouldn't disparage the peanut butter. Peanut butter is delicious.
I
And
love
like you
peanut butter. It's
say,
so good.
who
Yeah.
likes a jam sandwich? Come on.
Ex
Like,
well,
you need the peanut butter.
some toast with some jam on it.
Well,
I'm all
you're
for
talking
that.
about something different now. That's a
It's a
different,
different thing. Yeah.
thing.
All right. Well, it was nice jamming with you.
It was. I like that. It was good to see you. I'll talk
We'll
to you
sign off
later.
on that. All right. Talk to you later, Carrie.
Bye.
All right. Bye.